Hey, welcome everybody. Craig Howard here. Rob Reinhard, next door Triactive. Craig Howard here. Diablo CrossFit with Rob Reinhard, next door Triactive. This is the amazing PNOE device, and I mispronounce it every time. I call it the PNOE for months. So anybody that's talked to me and heard me call it PNOE, apparently I was wrong. It's PNOE, but I have worn one and tried one. It's an amazing device. Rob runs Triactive next door, Triactive Endurance. My goal this year is to bring more content that's relevant to what you're doing, but also relevant to fitness. Some of the cool stuff that we know about as athletes and as gym owners. We have tremendous resources available to us, and Rob is one of them. Right next door, probably knows as much about cardiovascular endurance and endurance training, triathlon training, and marathon training than anybody in the industry. He doesn't brag much about it. I like to brag about him, but the stuff that he's got next door to measure this stuff is amazing. So I thought I'd introduce it to you so you guys can get a flavor for it. Rob, first, your background. So I know you're an Ironman.
Yep.
You've done a few of those, and you're training Ironman athletes. Tell us a little bit more about you and then Triactive Endurance.
Great.
Just from a credibility standpoint, like who you are, what you do, kind
Give
of thing.
me some cred.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So after making a lifetime full of bad decisions when I was younger, I decided to go back to school, and I became a psychologist. And I practiced private practice, and I worked with athletes at first, or in a very organic fashion. It just kind of manifested that way. And then I moved from doing direct service work into designing systems of care, and then I started to get into the endurance world, triathlete. I used to be very unhealthy. I used to weigh about 296 pounds.
That blows me away, by the way, all the time when I hear that number. That's just like not conceivable.
With about 0% muscle in there. And then one day I got up and decided that I got tired of putting a pair of pants on a funnel and decided to get fit. And I dropped about 100 pounds pretty instantly. And then I went into the endurance world. It all happened very organically. Over the years, that manifested into a transition from psychology into coaching. Coaching endurance, coaching triathlon, so on and so forth. That started with moving from psychologist to athlete to coach. And as a result of that, I was always a pretty good student. I enjoyed learning, and I became very enamored with exercise physiology. And in 2014, Triactive Endurance was born. I'm a 6-time Ironman, and blah, 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 all this kind of other stuff. And I'm with Craig. I'm not really good at kind of self-promotion.
And you've had a number of athletes that have competed on the biggest stage in the world for endurance, which is Kona. And so Rob knows a thing or two about endurance training, endurance prep. But what I love about what he does over there, and Rob, is that he's a geek for the science. Is really what's most important is that that things be measurable and repeatable. And that's a kind of a theme of CrossFit, but it's super helpful in the endurance world. And I'll tell you that the endurance world, in my experience, has delved a lot deeper into the human physiology, like from a scientific point of view, especially as it regards to nutrition, but then all of the mechanics to measure performance, more so than even CrossFit, which is more kind of empirical data based upon what they do in the gym. Watching them move and then measuring the load and the distance and the time. Anyway, so let's delve right into this thing, because I did this. You bought this machine last year, and then you gave me a free test on it, and I was blown away by what it measured, and I got the PNOE results, which measures the calorie burn efficiency, cardiorespiratory fitness, muscle composition as well. What's cool is the thing that I was fascinated with, at least initially, because you had me ramp up on a 15-minute test, and I started out really easy on a rower wearing this, and then he ramped me up gradually over those 15 minutes to a max effort at the very end, and then was able to tell me my oxygen intake versus my carbon monoxide output, and then was able to tell me when I moved from glucose, right, more of a glycolytic state into an oxidative state, right?
Other way around.
Other way around.
Into pyruvate. Yep.
So why is this important? And I guess what the hell is this? And then two, why is it important?
Yeah, great questions. So first of all, we used to have to do a metabolic test. We used to have to put you on a vent, right? This big, huge thing, computers and this big cart and all this kind of stuff. Put you on a treadmill, put you on a bike, and it was limited to one of those two
all
things.
The pipes coming out.
Right,
shit,
all that kind of stuff. The vent, it's, you're this and there's that, and there's always, the mask leaks and so on and so forth. Well, our friends that I partnered with last year at PNOE have designed and taken all that equipment and dialed it down into this little thing right here, which is basically...
This is the backpack. This was it. And it's literally, this is 2.5 pounds.
Yep, that's powered. That's the battery right there. So I charge that, and what happens when somebody comes to test, we put that right on the back, and it fits pretty snugly. And then this is the unit right here. This is your breath analyzer. So it measures the molecular structure of your breath, just like a vent does. Only it gives you, everything's right here, so it doesn't have to travel through a vent before it gets into data, which actually makes it incredibly efficient. It's hard to imagine that this can be as efficient as this big old thing we used to use. And the other bonus to this is that it's portable. Right. I can take it and I can run a test trail running. I can run a test on a bicycle out on the road. I can run a test pushing a sled down the street, so on and so forth. The other great thing is that I can write the protocol, right, for whatever activity or skill we want to use to test people. So I have CrossFitters come in. We had Craig on a rower. I had one guy do it with a series of super heavy loaded walking lunges.
Oh, that's cool.
Right, because the goal here is we want to get your respiratory exchange rate from baseline, whatever that might be for that individual, over 1.1. And as long as we can do that throughout the scope of a test, we can get all the data that we need. I can write a protocol that will get most people there inside of 16 minutes.
Right.
And then from that, we get an econometry report, which is going to spit out all the things that Craig had mentioned, right? We look at the caloric burn efficiency, what's the caloric expenditure. The other thing that dovetails into that is we look at what we call mechanical efficiency. And it's super important for people to understand, bear with me, I'll be quick, that when we take nutrients into our body, when we eat, only 20% of those nutrients get converted into caloric energy. The other 80% goes to thermal regulation and the body's ability to create heat. So how much of that 20% am I actually using for energy or during exercise translates to what we call mechanical efficiency. Some people sit at 8%, some people at 12%, some people at 14%. Really good athletes are able to convert 19 or 20%, all 20% of that. And that gives you a really high level of mechanical efficiency. The other thing it does is it looks at muscle composition, slow twitch versus fast twitch. Okay, and we look at that type of metric for CrossFitters. You should be, if you're really competitive, you'll be a little bit more fast twitch. Your composition will be a little higher on that end, or a lot higher. Right? People that sustain the least amount of injuries have a pretty good balance at every level of muscle composition. So, and then we look at substrate utilization. How much fat does your body use at what intensity to provide energy? And at what point does carbohydrate kick in to provide the energy? And that's their crossover point. From those things, from those metrics, and then it also gives us heart rate zones, so on and so forth. From those metrics, we can then begin to look at building a nutritional profile day-to-day and performance that is going to enhance the athletes, help them reach their goals and enhance performance at any level.
So if you have an athlete just that is ketogenic, right, that is operating in ketosis and being basically burning fat for energy, how is their PNOE results going to be different than say someone that is carbohydrate dependent, right? It's the typical endurance athlete where they're eating what they can or as much as they can in order to perform.
So people generally fall into one of three categories: fat burner, sugar burner, or mixed burner.
Okay.
Most people are mixed burners of some sort. The body is very efficient, right? Evolution has taught us we need to be sufficient or efficient to live, to survive. So somebody in a ketogenic, or somebody that's actually in ketosis, because a lot of people on a ketogenic diet aren't actually in ketosis.
That's true.
So what you're going to see generally is you're going to see that their body is a little bit more capable of burning fat at a higher intensity as that curve comes out. So for somebody that's actually in ketosis and is in a ketogenic state, when they test, even at a super high intensity, they'll probably still be a fat burner at up to 80 or maybe even 90% of VO2.
Right.
So they're going to have a higher crossover point. Right? For those who are sugar burners or a little bit more carbohydrate dependent, you're going to see that crossover point much closer in. Some people whose hormones are so disrupted, they're not going to have a crossover point, and they might be just purely sugar burners. Now, everybody's body is capable of burning fat when they sleep. That's a primary fuel source when we're at rest. But the key is to be able to access that at a higher intensity. That makes for more efficient training and exercising.
This is one. I mean, there's multiple applications. I love the data that it provided me. If someone though is training for, say, a Spartan race, a 10K, a half marathon, we have a lot of our members that do that, and even marathons. How is this data valuable to them? So if someone's starting, so now that's because we're right at the beginning of the year, right? Yep. And so people are going to set goals for these things throughout the year. And we've already got a Spartan race plan for the gym where, the community's getting together. How is this data going to help them in terms of their preparation for those things?
I think one of the primary purposes that it can serve is it can really help guide the day-to-day nutritional profile, which is going to help them maximize their performance or their training in each and every day. Right. The other thing it will do is it will set heart rate. It'll let you know exactly where your heart rate zones are and at what intensities. So for the endurance side, of that Spartan athlete, right, they're going to do most of that training they want to do in an endurance zone, in a lower heart rate zone. Right. So a rule of thumb in most endurance sports is we train in zone 2, we race in zone 4, right? Or the tempo zone, right, much higher to threshold. So it helps set those zones in, and then by guiding the nutritional profile that feeds those zones, because each of those zones and the ability to function in those zones is guided by what you put in your body.
Right. So this is important, and I think this is the part that a lot of people don't understand. I think it's super helpful to understand, especially as most people are interested in losing fat, right, and gaining muscle, right. So they want to be leaner, but they may be training in zones, especially for endurance races. They may be training in zones that are not burning fat, you're more in that sugar bone burning, right, the glycolytic state. This report gave that feedback to me. So for example, it said in my fat max zone, or the zone at which I burn the most fat, is when my heart rate is 107 to 123, right? So, and that for me is like, that's a jog. Right? Because if I start to get over jogging into a run, right, I'm gonna get in 135, 145, 150. Now obviously I want to build up my speed over time so that heart rate 107 to 123 is making me I can operate faster. I can go faster at that heart rate, right? I mean, that's where we want to get to. But it's important to know this from a couple different perspectives. One, from the perspective of fitness. Like, I obviously want to, if I'm in a fat burning zone, that's a great state to go. That's a great zone to be in for super long endurance, right? If I want to go do the Mount Diablo run 50K, I want to be in this heart rate. As soon as I start to get over it, I'm going to get into a danger zone, I'm assuming. But being here also, so I want to be able to go faster in this rate. But what's cool is knowing this heart rate is that if I want to go take the dogs for a run every morning, if I stay in this heart rate, I'm fast, I'm probably going to be burning fat. Is that safe to say? So training is stress, right? Whether it's CrossFit, endurance training, whatever it is, it's stress on the body. That's how we adapt. That's how we get better, stronger, faster, whatever it is we do, right? Within that stress, or within exercise, or all the zones and confusion that people have, we have different energy systems. We have oxidative stress, or an oxidative system. We have a glycolytic state, and then we have pyruvate, right? We have aerobic and anaerobic, right? And each of those fall into either aerobic and anaerobic. Truly aerobic means with oxygen, anaerobic is without oxygen. Okay, so the problem is with not knowing kind of the zone, and people get stuck in what we in the endurance world call the gray zone, is that the gray zone feels really good because it solicits brain chemistry, right? Lots of serotonin, right, and enkephalons and so on and so on, and it feels really good. The problem is that when you're in that zone, you don't get the benefit. You get maybe 60% of the benefit that you could be getting, because in the endurance, what this is all about is mitochondrial development. Mitochondria is the energy cell
it's the energy source of each and every cell.
Right.
Right? So in the Krebs cycle, when we go from ADP to ATP, right, we need to make sure that that's happening. And when we are in that gray zone or in the wrong zone, we're spending mitochondria, but we're not replacing it.
Right.
Training is about making mitochondria and red blood cells, maximizing, stocking your factory so it's full. So when the big dance comes, boom, you have a full factory ready to go to work.
Yeah. And you know where you should be to operate the most efficiently too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I can, I've worked with a few CrossFitters, right?
Right.
A couple of pretty high level CrossFitters. And had we had this information present then, I think that performance could have been maximized a little bit more. And I know for most people that are, most of us are just everyday people, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't get paid to compete.
Right.
I'm old. I don't get paid to compete anymore. So, when I'm going to go out and I'm going to do a session, whatever it is, whether I'm lifting, whether I'm running, riding, swimming, whatever it is, I want to get the most out of it because time's a premium. So with the information that we can get here, it's really about maximizing your time, maximizing your effort, and getting the biggest bang for your buck.
Here's the other thing too. So I've been fitnessing since I was 15 years old, right? So I've got all these years of experience. So I have a pretty good sense of the feel of my body and, when I'm going to blow up and when I'm not going to blow up, right? And blowing up is the worst feeling in a long Metcon or on a run. It makes for example, if people want to start running, and one of the issues is when people start running is, and I tell them how great running is awesome, or even long bike riding, is people go and they blow up,
Yep.
right? When they first start, because they don't understand like how their body should feel when they go. And maybe you shouldn't start with a run because if you start with a run, you're gonna instantly be over that 123 heart rate for me, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna be closer to max heart rate if I'm just starting out, and then it's miserable for me.
Yeah.
But knowing and understanding that those numbers can help you get a sense of, oh, this is how I'm supposed to feel, right? So in a Metcon, like I know how I'm supposed to feel,
yeah.
And I know that I'm not in the gray zone, but hopefully I'm in a better zone than. Right.
If you've trained the wrong energy system and then you go and try to use, one of the other energy systems, it's just not there.
Yeah.
Right. So one, you create a foundation, and then you can build whatever you want on top of the bright shiny stuff on top of that foundation.
Yeah.
Right. Now, just as a side note, I've been an athlete for a number of years. I've raced at a pretty big stage a couple of times, and I when I'm properly trained, I can perform in my age group. I'm working with a new coach right now, and he's got me back up doing everything that I do at under 130 beats a minute.
Jeez.
This is like suicide for me, right? Learning how to I'm a 7-10 mile guy over a marathon, right? I'm running 12-minute miles right now. And he's back.
You literally have to put the blinders on when people pass you on the trail. And he's like, no. I know
Exactly.
I can take that guy, but I can't take him.
Exactly, right? So, it's a great lesson in patience and whatnot, but I also understand that I need to build the diesel engine from the ground up again, right? I took a year off from racing and training and so on and so forth, but to be able to back stuff up, and it prevents what we would call aerobic decoupling, right? Effort goes up and performance goes down. This is what happens when we're not properly trained. Right, and what we want to do is, when effort gets up, we want performance to go up.
That was when I did marathons and triathlons. That was one of the hardest things to understand. And I remember reading a very extensive article on it, on how you can build cardiovascular endurance, and a lot of endurance athletes do it in the off season.
Yeah.
And so you think in the off season, right, they're training super hard, but really what they do is they back off the intensity. They get into that lower heart rate and do the long endurance, and it literally makes the heart stronger, makes the blood vessels larger, builds the wall of the heart, and makes you more efficient in that oxidative state.
It creates an alkaline environment in your blood versus an acidic environment.
Yeah,
right.
It's fascinating.
Which allows blood to flow.
It's very counterintuitive to what we do here, right? Right, but
it's not.
But if you're gonna, but if you're gonna be a better CrossFit athlete, and you want to take it to the next level, these are some things. And if you've got a Spartan race, you got a 10K, you got a half marathon, this is a cool thing. I mean, this will make you better.
I think it's kind of human nature. We always want to go for the bright, shiny stuff.
Yeah, we do.
And whatnot, but creating that foundation, that platform underneath. I mean, look at all the greatest athletes in the world. I've been super fortunate to have worked with some of the best triathletes and runners and cyclists in the world. My coach is one of the greatest cyclists in the world, and all of them do 70% of their training, regardless of what time of season it is, in these lower zones.
Wow.
You know, I've worked with some of the fastest runners in the world, and I go out and I've done training runs with them at a 9:30 pace.
That's crazy. It really is crazy.
These are some 4-minute milers, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're
Here's the other thing. So on top of all of this is just, I mean, we're talking, you know, just one facet of building a cardiovascular engine and building fitness performance. On top of this, and especially in the endurance side, is things like hydration, right? And electrolytes and salt and all of those things. And so these are things that Alessandra has been to talk to Rob about as well. But as we get in here for a 15-minute Metcon or a 10-minute Metcon, hydration isn't as important. Yes, we want you to be properly hydrated when you come into it, but it really starts to come into play as soon as you start to get past 30 minutes, 45 minutes, hour-long endurance runs. Hydration, and then how much you sweat, salination, and then electrolytes and all of that. And Rob has tests and coaching for all of that as well.
Yeah, it also is super important for recovery for your CrossFit athletes.
Yeah, it is. That's right.
Right. Yeah, I don't care if it's a 6-minute, an 8-minute, a 10-minute, 12-minute Metcon, whatever it is. Recovery is just as important, right?
Yeah.
So if your hydration, your electrolyte profile, you know, let alone nutrition, if that's off, I mean, you can really enhance your recovery.
Right.
By knowing that stuff.
Yeah, and Rob has tools for all of this stuff. And if you haven't been over to Triactive, by the way, and you walk in there, you're kind of blown away. Well, it's freaking spotless in there, which I love. But then the other part is just the mechanics, the mechanical stuff that he has set up with the assault runners that are set up all lined up facing the wall so they can project the workout of the actual workout that people are doing, the intervals that people are doing, and then all the cycle trainers too that are in there and lined up. And you get a real sense for the science that's behind this, and I think that's super cool. And it's something that we as Diablo CrossFit, especially if you really, you know, you're getting into this, you're coming 4 days a week, 5 days a week, and you want to improve your performance, you've got an event coming up, go talk to this guy. So let me just ask you, we talked about a lot of this, but I'll leave these up in the front room.
Cool.
The PNOE test.
Yeah.
So it's tell me the price for if someone wants to come in and get a PNOE test and figure this shit out and get the cool report. How much, and then what are they getting with that?
Great. PNOE test, January 2020, we'll run $229 for a baseline test. That'll give you the test. You can select your activity. I can write the protocols. That will include the generated report, which is usually around 8 to 11 pages. Giving some overall information, and then all your data specifically from you. We get and that comes usually within 48 hours. We'll get that. Then we sit down and review that, and how does that translate to you? I'm a big believer in science, obviously, and art, right? Right dose, right person, right time. So the science is the science, and science can be wrong, but for the most part, it's not. And what we can do, the art comes in applying what the science means to you and what's your lifestyle, so on and so forth. So the baseline test in January 2020 is $229. Otherwise, it's $279. We have packages on top of that. We can do a pre-test and then do a test 90 days later based on protocols, exercise, nutrition that you try yourself. That's at a discounted rate. Or I also have a 90-day package where we do a test and I do all the programming, nutritional stuff, performance programming, everything, and then we test again 90 days later, and that again is a different package.
Cool. I'd highly advise if you're planning a Spartan, you're planning the Mount Diablo run, you're planning a half marathon or a marathon. If you haven't been over to see Rob, I'd say go see him. One, you get this test done. But the other thing, and then we didn't touch upon, and we can do a whole nother session on because we can spend a lot of time on it, is the mechanics behind all of this. You know, movement and proper movement is essential to what we do here at CrossFit. And that carries over to running mechanics and bike mechanics. Bike mechanics gets even more scientific because you got, actual just getting aligned properly on a seat, on a frame, and making sure the bike fits so that you can perform at your best. But then how you move and how you efficiently move to make that work the best for you. They do all of that stuff.
Regardless of the sport and what kind of athlete you are, postural mechanics are absolutely huge in everything from how you just stand. Right, and how you carry yourself, and to when you actually move, everyday movement, exercise, movement, intensity, endurance, it doesn't really matter, right? So activation, mobility, stability, then load.
Yeah.
If that process or any stage of that process is left out of the equation, once you try to put load on it, it's only a matter of time that tail's going to start wagging the dog.
If you want to get faster at your 400 meter runs, you want to get faster at 800, you want a faster mile, you want a faster 10K, you got to practice. That's the most important. But you also need better mechanics, and that's a great place to come learn how to get all that. So cool. Thanks for spending some time with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Let's do this again. I wouldn't mind doing something where we get a clinic and bring our members in and to help them get ready for some of the stuff that they're planning on this year.
That would be awesome. We could also, if you want, if we don't do a live session, we do a live session of a test.
Oh, that'd be great.
15, 20 minutes,
Ooh.
boom.
Oh, that'd be cool to watch it live.
And then sit down and go through the agronomic.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thanks, Rob.
Awesome.
Cheers.
Thanks, Craig. Cheers.
Yep.